I've been making Harry Potter videos for about 2 years now, but I grew up loving the books and movies. I was actually forced to read the books before each corresponding movie came out. That was just the rule in my household, and I'm actually grateful that my parents made me do that because as a kid, I probably would have just gone straight to the movies if I could have, because I didn't enjoy reading nearly as much as I do now. But nowadays, I love the books way more than the movies, as most Harry Potter fans do, because you just get so much more content. You get more Quidditch, you learn more about the characters, you get other classes, and that's why I think the new Harry Potter show actually has the potential to be better if they do certain things right. I actually have a series on my channel called Movies vs. Manuscripts, and if you're not familiar with it, I essentially go scene by scene and page by page comparing the books to the movies for both Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and I find all the differences. And if you didn't know, there are a lot of differences between the books and movies. I think a lot of times Harry Potter fans just try to act like the movies are perfect, when in reality, they messed up a lot of stuff. And a lot of things that the show is currently getting crucified over are things that the movies did wrong. We just love them because they have a nostalgic place in our hearts that really can never be replaced. But in a more laid-back video today, I just wanted to talk about my personal opinion about the upcoming show, because I don't really think I've talked about it yet, and I wanted to cover a few deal breakers that could really ruin the show, as well as things that the TV show could actually do different from the original films that could actually make them a bit better. So let's jump right into this list, and I'm gonna start with something that actually doesn't have me as worried now, but when they first announced that they were doing a show, it had me extremely stressed, which was that I was afraid they were going to modernize things. This is something that the movies did right, and I actually preferred it this way because if I would have gotten into this show on HBO and seen Harry with an iPhone, I think I would have freaked out. I don't know about you, but just because of when the books were written and when they're supposed to take place, I definitely need to see Harry in that 90s context. It just would have been way too weird to mix the magical moments with our modern technology. If you're familiar with the books, then you know that Mr. Weasley is always blown away by Muggle technology, and that was in the 90s, so if they put it in today's terms, I think his brain would simply explode. It also just would have been a clear sign that they are completely throwing out the plot and don't care about things if they immediately changed the timeline of the entire story. But anyway, based on the behind the scenes photos we've gotten and everything we've learned, I'm pretty sure they're sticking to the original timeline. Next up, a deal breaker for me would be changing the big moments of the plot. Now, this might seem obvious and ridiculous for me to say, but based on other adaptations we've seen, maybe Rings of Power for example, and even the movies, we know that it isn't impossible. The movies changed a lot of key plot moments and had to fill in those plot holes later in the series, causing an avalanche of changes. So while it may seem ridiculous to say, hey, I hope they don't change the entire plot, it isn't totally uncalled for. Now, spoiler alert, but I'm gonna assume that most of you know what happens in the story. If they change something like Snape's role at the end, that would completely crush me. That was something that I think the movies did well in the final film, as we relive Snape's memories, and those scenes will live on in my memory forever. But for example, if they change Lily and Snape's dynamic to something maybe deeper, that will totally be horrible. Before they started casting people, I actually was worried that they would go along with some fan theories out there saying that Harry is Snape's child. But now that they've cast Snape, I think we can throw that theory out the window. And then there's smaller plot moments, like let's say Dumbledore owning the Elder Wand. That's something that could easily be changed, but if they change that, it would make me question how much other stuff is going to get changed in the entire series. But at the end of the day, I think it would be best if they just went word for word off of the page, because ultimately the story is written like a TV show. It's not like a Lord of the Rings where it's kind of hard to adapt it to a screen, because J.R.R. Tolkien's writing style was just so specific. J.K. Rowling really wrote it like it was a show, so it should be easily adapted to a TV format. Anyway, I'm gonna hope and pray that they don't change any crucial plot elements, but let's move on to something else that I really care about, which are the characters. This is where we get into some things that the movies changed that I didn't really like. For example, I wish we would have seen Peeves in the movies. Now, I know you're probably going to the comments right now to tell me that they did cast Peeves and actually filmed with him, and you're probably going to put the anecdote there that the kids were laughing too much so they ended up having to cut it. But the reality is that Peeves didn't make the cut despite him being in pretty much every single book. There are also changes in the movies like Cedric Diggory. We don't see real Cedric Diggory until the Goblet of Fire, and we're supposed to like him when he dies. In the movie, we really form no attachment attachment to him. He actually kind of comes off as a bit of a bully, but in the books, they make it so clear that he is super nice and everybody likes him. That's what makes him so popular. And in fact, he shows up in the Prisoner of Azkaban book as Gryffindor plays Hufflepuff. We do kind of see Cedric in the Prisoner of Azkaban movie as Gryffindor plays Hufflepuff, but the actor isn't Robert Pattinson. And all they do is have the Seeker on the Hufflepuff team get struck by lightning and he falls to the ground, which is totally not what happens in the book. What really happens in the book is that Harry and Cedric both go chasing after the snitch. Harry gets a little behind and then falls off of his broom because of the Dementors. And then what happens after is that Cedric actually asks for a rematch because he thinks it's unfair that he caught the snitch when Harry was being affected by the Dementors. So right from the Prisoner of Azkaban, we begin to love Cedric because he has integrity and is honest and kind, which is probably why he's in Hufflepuff. So for me, that's a way that the TV show can immediately improve from what the movies did. Because they have so much extra time, they can dive into those character moments when other characters were foreshadowed before their main plot points in future books. In the same way, Cho Chang was talked about way before she really appeared in the Goblet of Fire and the Order of the Phoenix. Now, the last thing I'll say for characters here is that I really hope the show can correct the mistakes that the movie made with Ron. Something that I don't see fans talk about enough is how much the movie adaptations ruined Ron. Now, if you look at everything within its own little sphere and circle, you just look at the movies by themselves, Ron is totally fine. But when you look at movie Ron versus book Ron, everybody prefers book Ron. Book Ron is just so much better. He actually seems to fit in Gryffindor. And what the movies did is they took a lot of Ron's best moments and best lines and gave them to Hermione. So the TV show really has the chance to correct that mistake and give Ron his special moments and his lines. For example, at the end of The Prisoner of Azkaban, Ron actually stands up on a broken leg and stands in front of Harry when they think that Sirius is a mass murderer. But in the movie, Ron is a little crybaby in the corner while Hermione is the one who stands in front of Harry. It's actually really insane if you just read the last chapters of The Prisoner of Azkaban and then watch the last moments of the movie. It really opens your eyes to how dirty they did Ron in the films. Anyway, that's enough of character talk. Let's move on to some of the extra fun stuff. Something that they can improve upon and would be a deal breaker for me if they didn't include are the extra classes that we never get to see. Hermione takes a lot of extra classes that we hear about in the book that we never see in the movies just because they didn't have enough time. And then we also have several moments with Professor Binns in their History of Magic class. And in the Chamber of Secrets, Professor Binns is actually the one who tells them the history of the Chamber of Secrets, not McGonagall. To me, it would be a deal breaker if they didn't include these moments and just followed the movie path, because they have so much extra time, so why wouldn't they include it? They have the ability to stay to what the book says, whereas the movie didn't, so the movie was kind of forced to rewrite some of those moments. Another extra thing that a lot of Harry Potter fans know and complain about is the fact that the movies cut a lot of Quidditch. So now, hopefully that, again, they have extra time in this TV show, they'll include every Quidditch match from the books. Now I only have a couple other deal breakers left to discuss, one being the use of CGI. Supposedly they said that they're going to use more practical effects for the magic, which I actually love, but we'll see how much they stick to that. If they rely too heavily on CGI, that will be a deal breaker for me. Now, obviously we are in a magical world, so they're going to have to use some special effects that they can't do practically. But when you look at things like The Hobbit or Rings of Power, there's something uncanny about the way they look because they're just so much CGI. The Hobbit was like 90% recorded in front of a green screen, and I don't want that to happen with this TV show. Especially for child actors, it just makes it so much more fake when they have to look at a tennis ball when they're in a green room and act. Like, how are they supposed to put their heart into it if they aren't actually looking at the real thing or another person? Not to give other content too much collateral damage here, but the Minecraft movie is a great example of horrible acting because of green screen. There are some moments where you can tell as they're panning back and forth between characters that those characters didn't even record their shots in the same room, and therefore their eye lines and dialogue just seem so fake to one another. So hopefully they keep it as practical as possible with real sets, having all the actors there just like the movies did, because I know one of the best things about the movies and why it feels so homey and nostalgic for us is because they really recorded it as one big family. Yes, our trio and people like Dumbledore and Voldemort had some more exclusive moments together, but for the most part, all of the Hogwarts students in the early movies recorded together and were together for scenes. So hopefully they keep it that way on a real life set. Now finally, a last deal breaker for me, and something that the movie kind of got wrong, would be the writing. One issue when you get into TV shows is that you often have different writers per episode, so first of all, hopefully they keep the same writers for every episode. That way it's very cohesive and all flows together. But when I say that the writing could be a deal breaker, I'm not even referring to the plot. I'm just referring to writers thinking that it's their time to make a mark in the industry and write their own stuff. They want to be the one who gets the clips on TikTok and has people quote their lines that they wrote. Well, I've got news for you. You're adapting someone else's work. J.K. Rowling already put her heart and soul into the story and already wrote a bunch of lines and dialogue that we love as fans of the Wizarding world. So please, please just put those lines and that dialogue into the TV show. Like I already pointed out with Ron and Hermione, the movie took a lot of liberties with swapping lines between characters and making up some of their own. And I totally understand that the movies didn't have time to include the entire dialogue from the books, because often you'd have a monologue that would take 10 minutes. So I totally get that. But oftentimes you can cut down the dialogue without having to change it. If I had it my way, they would just follow the book exactly with 0 deviations. Because like I already said, the books are written like a TV show. You can just go chapter by chapter in different episodes, and if you have short chapters, you can combine them together. But they're really written in the perfect format for this. But anyway, those are just some of my ramblings. I hope you guys have a great day, and if you stuck around until the end, leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to check out some of my more researched and analytical content, you can head over to my channel and take a look at my playlists, which contain my Movies versus Manuscript series, which I have for The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter. And right now we're in the Goblet of Fire, so we're having a great time with that because it's pretty much entirely different. Anyway, you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video.